Yo, what's up? I'm QuHarrison Terry, and today I've got a few of my homies with me. We got DC, David, say what's up.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
And then we got another David, DS, that's kind of what we're going to call him today. And then we've got the regular, guest of honor, Mr. Cowdrey. You're not even a guest anymore. You're just kind of here.
Permanent placement. Here to make it a nice square with all four people instead of a triangle.
This is that point, David, where we're going to ask you to retweet. This is the point where we're going to make sure the live stream is actually working because, this could get gangster. All right. I'm looking. Ryan, how you looking? We're looking good on my end.
We are live on LinkedIn.
Cool. Nice. With that, y'all know how we do. Leave the comments leave the comments. We'll get to them when we get to them. But with that said, today's topic of discussion is all about brand design and brand design essentials. Like if you are out there in the world, you've got a new idea, you're kind of like, hey, I'm going to seize this opportunity with all this extra time on my hands. How do I build a brand? There's levels to it, but I found that the tools and the essential just frameworks that I've learned over the years to like make things look impressive and quality. These aren't things that you just kind of stumble into on your first rodeo. And I want to help you out by just sharing our knowledge and insights from this mind meld. So I want to kick it off and do a roundtable. Just the four of us, everybody just give one of their favorite tools that they use for design, and I'll pull it up on the screen.
Cool. For me, I was never really much of a computer creative. I've always just kind of latched onto the iPad game. And for me, it's Procreate and LumaFusion. So those two are always open on my iPad to basically go from static images to, video images, all that type of stuff. So those are my two.
And how do you use Procreate?
It's just like Photoshop, except better for the iPad, more suited to having an Apple Pencil on hand. I do it to mostly create static images. It's not great for doing animated type stuff, but it gets the job done.
And how do you use LumaFusion? What is that in your creative workflow for someone that's never heard of it?
Yeah, so LumaFusion, it's what would that be in the Adobe world? What's the video editor in Adobe?
Premiere.
Yeah, Premiere. It's basically that version except for iPad. Once again, just a little bit more suited to having, your fingers on the screen and stuff like that. Really, though, it's nice to be able to take, a static image from Procreate, bring it over to LumaFusion. That can be, your landing page of sorts. And then you can bring videos in, overlay them, and just kind of have fun with it and be very, very agile, very nimble. That's what I like about the iPad.
Got it. And DS, what's your take?
Yeah, so lots of tools to choose from. I'm just fascinated by Figma, and I'm trying to just get myself further and further up to speed with Figma because to me, Figma is eating every other design tool out in the market. So you've got InVision app, which many people have heard of. You've got Sketch, which many people have heard of. You've got Printable, which is another design tool, and literally Figma is just integrating all of those features into their application. And one of the most exciting things they do, which you can see right there on the screen, is you can do multiplayer designing with other people. So multiple people can be designing in the same canvas. It's always in the browser. And so I'm seeing just insane things that are being built within Figma. The last thing I'll mention about it, there's a community aspect. So you can actually clone other people's design elements to use for yourself. So if you're not a great designer, there is like an open library of design assets that you can clone into your own project. And then you can export that as code for like a developer. So anyways, Figma is like hands down the thing.
Right. You sold me on Figma. So like, I remember Figma because I design and I was using Sketch, and I'm pretty big on Photoshop and Illustrator, but I was on a Chromebook and I had the Google Pixel book or whatever, and I was trying to do the design stuff, and I was using a virtual machine, and then someone was like, yo, just use Figma. But I haven't checked it out since then, and it looks like it's come a long way. So
it's just I just think you can just quit all these other applications now, and it's in the browser. So everywhere you are, you've got your designs. So I find that to be a really amazing workflow hack for any creative that you work with. All right. I sort of enforce that now. It's like, hey, we have to use Figma if we're going to work together on something.
You got
All right.
Nick and Yuri are both in the chat. They're saying Figma's king. So it sounds like
All right.
it's
Figma
is the winner.
quarantine.
There we go. DC, what's your tool of choice, man? What do you got?
Well, with my background in photography, I like to keep it pretty simple, just with the Lightroom Photoshop workflow that I basically used my whole career now.
So I gotta pause you there because there's a big debate in Lightroom, right? Lightroom CC or Lightroom Original?
I use CC. I switched from Original about a year ago, honestly, only because it gave me the option to update, and I said, you know what, might as well just give it a shot and see what this is like. I really like the Original, but I went to CC.
Now, for someone that just might have their iPhone, they're just getting started in design, they want to take a photo, they want to edit the photo, they want it to look really good. How would they use a Lightroom CC? What would you recommend?
So Lightroom CC, I would say the perks about it is that it stores all your photos and it's a cloud-based service instead of more of like a hard drive or in your computer. It gives you, I think, about 20 gigabytes of cloud-based storage to start, and you can choose to add more if you'd like. But I think it really caters more towards the people who want a backup option for where their photos want to go, or kind of be a little bit more creative and
the creative photos, right? So they don't get jumbled with like all the like pet photos that you take on a day.
Yeah, so it's more about organization and kind of being more creative with how you store your photos.
That's sick. I think for me, I'm actually gonna plug one of David's. This is why I asked David to come on. Depth to Stock. Like seriously, this is one of my favorite tools simply because I can get images that are like edgy, creative, and they feel like they're with the times, right? Like you can even see the website. The website feels like 2020. Like it doesn't feel like 2018, 2016. It feels like 2020. And when you log in, it has an Unsplash-like feel where it's going to hit you with a bunch of beautiful images, but they've got some nice like categorization. So like, you know, you can click on people and you're going to get all these cool these people that are, I mean, David or DS is here. I'd love for you to like just kind of break down the mindset of.
Well, thank you for the introduction. So, you know, Death to Stock really started when the web was really turning visual, and Instagram and Pinterest and Tumblr and all these networks were coming out, and the style of photography that was happening on Instagram was so different than the stock photo world that it existed. Many people probably remember those like white background, awkward photos, like a banana on someone's head or something like that. I honestly don't even know why that was a thing at the time, but it was.
Like
and so
cultural meetings and stuff where they had one type of person. Yeah.
And just like they're very literal, right? And what we started to do was work with independent photographers and videographers on themes, ideas, concepts that they were really interested in on a monthly basis, just to produce new media that was more current, you know, as Q was saying. So it works in kind of an interesting way. Basically, what we do is we have a subscription service. So if you sign up for Death to Stock, every month you get refreshing new photos put into your library and emailed to you. And what we do is we take the subscriptions, you know, we take the cash from the subscriptions, and we basically dole it out to different artists around the world to produce new images. So it's kind of this cool, like we call it like a full circle thing where our subscribers give us cash. We take that cash, we curate and produce with the best artists. The best artists go produce stuff that they're inspired by. They send it back to our creators, and then our creators make something new with it. So it's like a really generative creative process. You know, we get people reaching out to us saying, I made this new app because I got so inspired by that series of photos. So the last thing I'll mention is everything is themed and everything is sort of curated and art driven. It's intentionally, we don't intentionally put so many photos on there because it's overwhelming. I mean, I know a lot of people have the experience of searching for photos for hours a day, and we want you to just hop in, see something inspiring and download it and use it. So it's all under one license. It's all really simple. There's no credits. And yeah, we just work with great artists. And that's kind of our edge, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we've been using Def to Stock for a few months now, and it's definitely leveled up our creative presentations, and just like people don't see these images as regularly as you might see like an Unsplash
Exactly.
image. So like, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, paid only. Mm-hmm.
we've seen our images when we use the Unsplash ones. They're like, dang, we use that same image.
Yeah, it's a secret. It's a secret weapon, right? Like people say, it's funny. We'll get people saying that they sort of made it's bottom up. They'll work on some creative team and they'll say like, hey, we have to get that to stock for our team. But then you also get people saying, I'm not telling other people about it because it's my secret weapon. So it's kind of funny. We're like, shoot, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's a super sick site. I rock with it pretty heavily. One question I had for you. So let's say you're creative, you're watching this presentation, and you want to work with Def to Stock or be a part of this community. What's the best way to make that happen, DS?
Yeah, it's we've sort of intentionally been pretty selective about it. So there's not really any way for people to just generally submit, mostly because we like to just super curate. But I will say we're very interested, especially in like up and coming talent. And so I think one thing we really try to do is find people early. I mean, it's interesting because some of the photographers we've worked with, you know, the way we work is we actually pay them like a full rate for everything up front. And I tend to see that we work with up and coming artists and then they actually kind of blow up and then we can't even afford them so much anymore. So I think especially for, you know, up and coming talent, people who they're doing something different. They've got a new style. They've got a new, you know, eye for things. That's what we look for. And we like to kind of hire that early. So I definitely say reach out. You know, if you feel like you've got a style and a story that you want to share more, we want to fund, like the way our creative process is like, you're the sort of the expert with a new eye and we want to empower you to do more of that. You know, like it's not so much us saying this is what is cool and this is what you have to do. It's like, let's find people who are on the edge of their industry and just say, do more of that.
No, that's sick. I love the way you describe it. Now, I'm the technologist. You know, I'm going to ask you the earth-shattering question. Are you ready for it?
Let's hear it.
You sure you're ready for it?
I'm not sure.
Brian, check his temperature.
I'll never be sure.
Temperature. It's COVID season.
Yeah.
Is there any artificial intelligence curating, you know, the Def to Stock photos?
So we have been looking into this. There is not right now, but what we're doing that's interesting is
human curated.
Yeah,
that's a big deal.
Human curated. Yeah, it's old school. No, we're you know, one thing that's pretty interesting, and this is like a way of thinking about. Maybe we can have a broader discussion about this. You know, not just with Def to Stock, but you know, one thing that's really interesting is what changed is how I started viewing the business. Like a few years in, where you know, at first you think it's like this media company and it's like stock and everything like that, and then I think you start realizing we're speculating on IP. Like we're like an investor. Like we look for trends in markets. Like we did a cannabis. If you want to search, I think if you go to the photo packs, you can find a set on cannabis that we did. But anyways, the idea is how do you find an up and coming trend, invest in it, and then build IP that's going to continue to pay off for you down the road. So you know, cannabis as a space was a growing industry. And so I don't know, I think this may be a really interesting discussion we can have about investing in IP, investing in media that you can resell, especially that's trend based. And so, yeah, it's kind of funny. It's like, I almost feel like, I don't know, other than in the music business so much, this model of investing in design assets or music or movies, even, you know, it's all kind of a similar business.
Now, I want to take that and segue into something a little bit more interesting. And that's the whole concept of investing in yourself. Like most people haven't gotten to that point, especially as a creative. Like once you kind of know your lane, I would think, David, you can kind of chime in here. DC, not DS. Mm-hmm. There's this point where you can kind of like say like, hey, I kind of know I'm a sports photographer now. Now let me go get more soccer photos. Now let me go get more football or basketball photos. Like, had you ever reached that point?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's levels to it, right? As a creative or just anyone trying to start a business, there's levels of discovery of yourself almost where you want to hit certain checkpoints. And for me in the beginning, it was all about getting better and honing my skills and working on my craft. And then once you really start understanding what you're good at and what you want to pursue, then you say, okay, well, I like sports. I've been doing sports photography for a while now. Now here's how I can go shoot this or shoot this. I think that started for me pretty recently, actually. Yeah.
And I want to build off that too, because like DES, what I'm hearing from like Def to Stock is like you probably experienced something similar, and you were like, hey, hold on, what if I'm not necessarily the sole creator? Let me go back and like let me think of these sets, and let me go empower other creators. So it's like you took it one step further. That's a powerful brand, man. That's a powerful brand move.
Yeah, that was just our audience too. We'd been building enough of an audience that you sort of diversify the voices and, the creators. And I think like a lot of creators do this when they collaborate with their friends, right? Like you might have a photo project and you need design or you need animation or something like that. And then the next project, you want to work with somebody else because you like to kind of change things up. And I think maybe what DC is talking about too is if you get to the edge of your ability or your style, you always want to get to that next edge, and there's this like ladder process that happens. Like, yeah, you hit that, and now I want to do a bigger shoot, now a bigger brand, or but it's risky every time, which I'm sure you can attest to, right? Everyone forgets that at some point, no matter what your creative industry is, you had to shoot that first video, right? You did shoot that first paying gig, and you have that feeling over and over again as you level up. You have to, like, if you're a wedding photographer, at some point you like literally for the first time had to capture that moment, and that was terrifying.
Now, David DS, I have a question for you. You're pretty active. Def to Stock is just one of the things that you've been working on here recently. I also saw that you've got a newsletter called Art, Money, Attention. Is that how do you enunciate that?
Yeah, I call it like art and attention. I kind of was being a little cheeky with like the maybe like Ty Dolla $ign or something like that, almost or like ASAP Rocky or whatever. But it's also like the bridge between those two things. So I think that's I mean, again, I think this is maybe room for a broader discussion, is like things that are purely art driven, I think tend to do really well in the brand space. But then there's this pull from the other direction, which is like business. And finding that right balance when you're brand building, I think, is really key, right? And the artists want to go out and do stuff that's really weird. The business people don't get it, and they want to just make money. And like the center point is where the magic happens. So that's kind of a little bit of the intention.
And you chose Substack for this. So a lot of people are seeing Substack. They've been pretty active on Twitter here recently, especially with COVID. How's your experience using Substack? If you were building a personal brand today, would you pick this tool still?
I think it's great for getting up and running really quickly. It's definitely stripped back, which is a helpful thing. I think, again, like if you want to put a bunch of constraints on yourself and just get started simply, Substack's the place to be. Most of my other newsletter stuff is on MailChimp purely because aesthetically you can design it differently. And that's going to be your limitation on Substack. The other benefit of Substack is it has the audio podcast stuff built in as well as subscriptions. So yeah, I think it's great if you feel like you have thoughts to share, like purely. It's the best way to get up and running. If you are doing something a bit more maybe creative or visual, maybe a different network is what you want.
So when you do these audio notes, how do you record? Like, what's your process there?
Yeah, I just started working with an editor actually, and I've been playing around with a bunch of different ways of doing this. So I'll tell you the easiest way I do it. I use the Memos app on my Mac. So I do the Memo app, and then I have a little tripod for my iPhone, which sometimes I'll record the video, I'll do the memo, and then sometimes I'll combine those for like video content.
I didn't even know there's voice memos on Mac. I just searched my computer. Like, what?
The audio quality is amazing.
It's just like our phones?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Oh, that's sick. That's super sick. Okay. Yeah, no, that's it's something you record there. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just didn't know that there was.
No, it's easy. Yeah, you just record and then I just, you just upload it to Substack. And actually, like, that audience isn't massive, but that's like one of the best engaged things that I've put out, which is interesting, that audio note. So it was interesting to see that people, I think, enjoyed that. So like a 10-minute, audio. So.
Got it. And then you also have a Jacuzzi Club. For the people that don't know, give them a quick breakdown of what Jacuzzi Club is.
Yeah, so Jacuzzi Club is a space for brand builders to hang out, mostly brand founders, a lot in the D2C space, but also in apps and other businesses. We call it like a chat room, but basically it's a Slack group, glorified Slack group, although we're building out kind of more of like a universe around it. But it's got amazing people in it. And what we wanted to do was really create a more laid back atmosphere. I feel like there's like the Y Combinator, like tech vibe out there, but there's not so much the person who feels like they, as a kid, were just obsessed with like brands like Porsche or like IKEA or Legos and stuff like that. Like that's a different crowd a little bit, you know, and there's also the fashion space, but it's not exactly that either. So we just felt like there was an opening for people who are building brands to have discussions about what they're seeing. And there's a weekly newsletter on that too, where we curate the best of the discussion that happens that week, goes into a newsletter that anybody can read. We talk about links and stuff like that people are sharing, different apps. So yeah, and we're building out. We just got go ahead.
I'm a pretty active member of Jacuzzi Club, and I have I enjoy it. I mean, like there's literally anything I can think of is actually in Jacuzzi Club, and you can't say that for about many communities, especially online ones. The one thing that comes to my mind that's pretty vibrant is to hear designers and brand builders talk about investments. Like the way you think about it, there was an article that was shared like from Forbes. You remember the goat farmer?
I'm not sure if I remember that.
Okay.
That sounds awesome though.
There's a goat farmer that was investing, and they're like, oh yeah, there's this goat farmer, but he did like a 4,000% return. And the conversation there was like, all right, whatever. But I want to, you know, we talk about investing with creatives. We're gonna lose our whole audience. So let's wake Ryan up and DC up. For people that are looking to join Jacuzzi Club, what's the process like? Is it a paid thing? Is it free? What, like, let us know, DS.
Yeah, right now it's a free thing. We're about to rebrand and kind of build out the whole platform. And it's just Slack. There's an application, and you can see it right there on that homepage. And one thing I'll just share that's interesting about community that I'm kind of learning, or I just learned through this process, is we're actually trying to get like, this is kind of counterintuitive, but we're trying to get more and more selective as it grows. So actually every new member, we're like trying to get more and more strict about just if they're like the right fit for this community. And that was something that was kind of counterintuitive to me, but it's the way we want to build out the platform. Is like, we want everyone to be the dumbest person in the room. And the only way to do that is to keep adding smarter people to the room. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So I guess I would just say, feel free to apply for sure. You know, anybody who's just like working on a new brand or, you know, is building a company is typically a good fit, but we're pretty picky now. We have a pretty big backlog, and yeah.
Got it. Thank you for bringing that giving us that breakdown. So this is the end. I think we're gonna like kind of close out here. This is the point where me and Ryan, we're gonna check the comments and allow everybody to kind of get their last words in. In closing, I do have a couple questions. If you were starting a new brand today, and this is a round table, anybody can jump in, where would you start? It sounds like Figma would be the place you would go and design your brand. That's what I learned today. It sounds like you would probably find a community online somewhere of some sort, paid, non-paid, but like somewhere where you can kind of just bounce ideas off of. It could be Jacuzzi Club. It could be something else. But what else would you do? Anyone can take it.
Well, for me, I use Instagram a lot, and I know that Instagram is, you know, everyone's first choice. That just comes to mind when it comes to social media, looking at brands. But for me, I have learned a lot helping start a few brands on social media and helping curate content and create content and do social. I believe Instagram is a really good snapshot of the way a brand is run, because it's basically them telling their audience and their consumers and reinforcing their brand statements to them and what they're all about. It's obviously not paragraphs and paragraphs of business plans, but what it is a quick way to see what a brand is all about and how they want to be perceived by their consumers.
Cool.
Totally. I'll jump in. I think I would agree with you there, DC, on the Instagram thing. To hop on social media though too, I think Reddit's pretty interesting from the standpoint of where can you go for your community to kind of hop in and see, okay, what is everybody in photography talking about? What is important to people in, we'll say enterprise software or something? What's important to people who have dizziness? And Reddit's so great at finding those communities of literally any kind. It could be a community around people who draw comics every day, so those are pretty valuable. And just seeing what's important to the people that you're going to build a brand around, what do they talk about? What language do they use? So I think Reddit's kind of cool for that.
Totally. Well, I can, I'll throw my 2 cents in. And I actually am so curious. I'd love to hear more from both of you about Instagram and how you kind of utilize that, as well as Reddit too. I think that's spot on. It's funny. My take on this is, I think I remember earlier in my entrepreneurial journey, there was always the idea doesn't matter, the execution does. And that was something a lot of people will say. And kind of now I feel like the idea really matters. And so I kind of almost take it back to the drawing board where I almost feel like to get attention as a brand today, you have to have a really concise, really clear, really packaged concept that people can just get immediately. And I could give a shout out here to Marty, who also is involved with the Jacuzzi. He's got a company called Poolside FM, which maybe you guys have seen before. It's the most amazing music player. Their Instagram is incredible too. It would be a great example. I think it's Instagram.com/poolsidefm. But you just get it. The second you see it, the people who will get it, who will like it, immediately love it, and everyone else just ignores it. And so I almost wonder about, thinking more through how understandable is this? And I think kind of what you guys are speaking to is part of that too. But, oh man, it's just, you have to, their website is insane. They went so far in a particular direction.
I like the first 3 pictures, just meme worthy. So great.
They're doing these mixtapes now. I think their tagline is "The sun never sets" or something, and it's just 90s poolside, incredible content. So, anyways, that would be my 2 cents: is make it as packaged as you possibly can for a particular audience, which I think speaks to what you guys both mentioned.
No, I would agree with all of those sentiments. And I think the only thing I would add to that I haven't heard is you really need to think about how you're going to engage your audience. I think knowing what they're into is a great step because it shows you the inner psyche of the persona that you're going after and what they're talking about. But that doesn't necessarily tell you how to engage with them. And I think a lot of brands underlook that. And when a brand actually knows how to reach you and how to make a meaningful connection, it's the difference is unmeasurable. I mean, any of you all probably can speak to that. And there's a brand experience where you're like, whoa, they actually get it. And it happens a lot in music, to your earlier point, DS, where I think music is forced to meet people where they are. So you see a lot of artists kind of create these communities and reach out to their super fans in unique ways that are really touching, but create these awesome brand pillars for them to tell and also make other people say, hey, I want that experience too. Choose me, pick me. And I would love to see more of the new brands that are going to emerge out of these times and just in the next few years really say hey, I was underheard, I was underlooked, and this is how I actually want to be treated. And to give some clarity to that, because I think a lot of people probably oh, what the hell is Q talking about? Postmates, great example, right? Everyone on this call, you ever use Postmates or Uber Eats?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 ways to look at that. You can see them as Postmates being the carrier for whatever you ordered. So if you ordered, a sub, or if you ordered an ice cream, or you ordered a cake, whatever, you got that, and you see Postmates as the conduit to getting that. And Postmates only sees themselves as the connector, right? So they're saying well, this item was at this restaurant or on the shelf here, and we're just digitizing that, and then we take a courier and we take it there. So in their mind, they're only responsible for the actual person that's delivering the package to you and making sure you get that. But what if what you got wasn't good? Whenever you get caught in that loop, they're 9 times out of 10, the customer service is hey, sorry, we only actually deliver. We don't actually care about the products on the shelves. Well, obviously you're only missing half of the experience, and like you should learn from it. And like it's nothing to give me credit. And to close this up, Amazon's a great comparable. When something's wrong with Amazon and I reach out to them, what does Amazon do? They're like, hey, sorry about that. We'll fix it. Here's some credit. Here's like, let us know how else we can make your experience better. And then they go and try to fix that experience on their end because they take full responsibility. I think that's how B2C brands and even B2B brands can start to think about it, is like what is my responsibility, but how am I going above and beyond that? And like just saying, I'm going to make that entire experience worthwhile for that end user. So that's my last tag on the brand. This was fun. Thanks for everyone that joined us. Thanks for everyone that watched live. And I will see you all in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.